Hello, this is Digital Accessibility, the people behind the progress. I'm Joe Walensky, the creator and host of this series. And as an accessibility professional myself, I find it very interesting as to how others have found their way into this profession. So let's meet one of those people right now and hear about their journey. All right, well, here we go with another episode where I have the opportunity to talk with an accessibility professional. And today I'm pleased to be speaking with Stephanie Walter. Hello, Stephanie. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. And you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much for participating in this. I'm talking from my home office on Vashon Island, which is near Blink's headquarters office in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. Where are you talking to us from?
No, I'm in Luxembourg. I think the first time we met, I was in Strasbourg, but now I'm in Luxembourg.
All right. Well, we always enjoy having perspectives from people in different parts of the world. So thanks for taking the time. And so I guess it's early evening for you right now.
Yeah, almost food time.
All right. Well, thank you again for electing to do that. We have met before. We've talked before. In fact, we worked together on an event in the past. But now you're involved in a lot of accessibility activities, and so I'm always trying to keep up with the many things you're involved in. But for people who aren't familiar with you, talk a little bit about who you are and the type of work that you're involved with.
Sure. So I'm Stephanie Walter. I live and work in Luxembourg and I work as a consultant, mostly in enterprise UX, which means I work on internal tool for employee to help them do their daily job. And today I work for a consulting company named Maltem, and I'm on a super big long mission for a client. It has been 3 years now. I'm working for the European Investment Bank. And we are currently migrating the 18th, no, it's like 19 years old almost, tool to a new system. And we're doing a lot of user research in the process to understand how people used the old one in order to migrate the right features, the right content and all of that. So yeah, that's mostly what I do at the moment. I'm still doing a lot of conferences. I still have a blog. I also do workshops online now, because with the pandemic, we've all invested in microphones and all of that. So it's very convenient to be able to do it online too. So yeah.
Well, I know you'll probably be talking about your UX background and then getting into accessibility, but I also know that you've been putting out a lot of very useful information publicly for people to use based on your own experiences with accessibility. And so I want to talk about that as
Yes.
well when we get to that, so people are aware of it. But one of the things I like to do with this podcast is go back in time and find out where people first found their way into accessibility. So how is it for you with your working life, your lived life, where you first became aware of accessibility?
Yeah, so I don't think I heard about accessibility when I was doing my master degree, but then I did an internship in Germany. And I was supposed to design iOS application and I had no experience with that. And I checked the iOS guidelines and there were kind of very small mention about accessibility, kind of some little, I guess, because it was not developed that much in like very, very old version of iOS. But I kind of heard the term. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. And kind of, to be honest, before that, when I was doing during when was I? No, it was not at the university. It was even before that. We had to do something with the class, and they told us we need to pick a topic on inclusion. And it was like, okay, you have this big broad topic on inclusion, and we say, okay, what could we do? And my friend went, I know someone who's deaf of hearing, and maybe we could check a little bit how are deaf people included in our society? And then they ask you like, yeah, this is very broad topic. So usually when you do something with students, they ask you to narrow it down. So we ended up working on how are deaf people included in the kind of cultural life in the place I was living in. And we interviewed some deaf people to understand a little bit how do they do it when I want to go to the theater, when they want to go to the movies, things like that. So like the first time I was actually involved with accessibility on a global area was that. And then when I started designing interfaces, this is when I was like, oh, actually, there's not just like accessibility of daily, like a wheelchair, things like when you think about accessibility, often this is the first thing that comes to mind. People like, okay, I have a wheelchair access, something like that. But then I discovered digital accessibility and making sure your website native applications are accessible too. So it was kind of during my internship, and I started reading on the topic. It was very interesting. And then when I came back to work in France for a web agency, they actually had an accessibility expert. So I was allowed to go to his training, and then I was trained with other people during that. And one of the things we did a lot with that company was they were really very proud. They still are very proud of making accessible websites. So everyone who works for with them or for them is going to go through the trainings. Used to, at least. I don't know if it's still the case. So yeah, I was kind of able to dig further into kind of technical topic of accessibility at that time. This is, I think, when I wrote my first article about accessibility, which was about color accessibility and how can you do it when you have a color that it's not passing the contrast ratio, a couple of tools, kind of how do you build an accessible color palette, something like that, which is usually the first thing designers think about when it comes to accessibility, is colors. And then from color, I went to different topics. And after that, I discovered I have a disability. I thought, like, okay, I didn't know it was a disability, but basically, I have a vestibular disorder, which is pretty mild. It doesn't affect my daily life. The only very annoying thing is, so how can I explain that? It's like basically my internal ear doesn't work properly, and I am over reliant on my sight for balance, which is okay, except when I'm in a car and I'm not in the front side, then I have things that move around. And my eyes is like, yeah, you have stuff that are moving around. And my internal ear is like, nope, you're not moving. And basically I get nauseous, which is annoying in car, but I can also have issues with websites, for instance, where you have a lot of parallax, scrolling effects, all of that, that can give me headaches and make me nauseous for the day. Or like for certain video games, again, I wasn't aware of that, but when I was a child, I tried playing Spyro the Dragon. I was nauseous about after 5 minutes. I was like, yeah, I don't understand why does this very specific video game make me nauseous. It's because of vestibular disorder, basically. So I kind of dug a little bit more into this topic as well to understand, okay, what's going on and how can we make sure that websites basically don't make people nauseous or don't give them a headache, which is kind of very niche. I don't think it's kind of big area in terms of how many people have such issues, but it's still part of digital accessibility for sure.
Well, thanks for sharing your personal physical challenge with that. It's always helpful to hear about those experiences, and so just kind of to recap your experience, you had your own personal challenge that you had to deal with, but you were also fortunate to be in an organization early on that embraced accessibility,
Yeah.
as well as getting experience in your academic studies early on. So first of all, that's just a great way to get exposed to that. And a lot of people have more difficulty finding their way into accessibility. But even with all of that, what were some of the challenges that you encountered in feeling like you really understood accessibility, and how did you prepare yourself better?
For me, it's kind of like WCAG criteria are very sometimes loose. So you have all the example to understand how it's working. So you have to do a lot of reading to understand very specifically different topics, different area to make sure that you're not messing anything up. which is kind of, I think, maybe this is why kind of accessibility, people think it's complicated because the way it's written is kind of super high level enough to be super generic. But at the same time, you have to rely on all the example. And also it covers a lot of topics. Like it's basically trying to include every different kind of disabilities. So it means that, yeah, of course, it's going to be a complex topic. But I think the biggest challenge is more like making people understand how important accessibility is, but also that if you tackle it from the start, it doesn't have to cost a lot more money. That's always a kind of the issue. But it's the same with everything. I think it's the same with security. It's the same with user experience. Is if you don't invest it at the beginning of the project, you just do something like, like Silicon Valley, do fast, fail fast, something like that. And then, yeah, of course, you push inaccessible product to the market, and correcting them will cost a lot of money because you have to rebuild part of the stuff and correct and change, and like it has impacts and stuff like that. On the other hand, if you start by having designer who understand accessibility guidelines, who understand the needs, who starts designing accessible website, native application systems, and then you have developers who also understand it, then it doesn't have to cost a lot more money. It's just kind of part of the process. And I think that's kind of the biggest issue we have at the moment, is a lot of people didn't care about it for a very long time, especially in Europe. And now they're like, yeah, but it costs a lot of money. And I've seen some horrible comments on LinkedIn because stuff like, it's like the Pareto law, we cater for like 20% or something like that. And they're like, yeah, but we don't have disabled people in our audience, so why would we care about those people and something like that? So it's always this kind of very horrible thing you read, like where people just kind of try to find an excuse to make something not accessible, which is hard to kind of not be mad at some point. Like reading the same stuff again and again is kind of.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, when we encounter where people are, specifically uh, being negative. And I think, unfortunately, we found it's easy for people to make comments through social media now, and we find that in all different parts of our culture. I think it is a reality, though, that we're still in a period as accessibility professionals where we have to continue to evangelize and educate people, and maybe just take the approach that yeah, maybe some people really don't understand challenges and haven't met and experienced people within their network that we know benefit so much from this type of work. So yeah, I just try to think of that as part of my work activity. It's one of the things that I know I'm going to have to do. You mentioned some of the activities in your part of the world, and that was one of the questions I wanted to ask. So you mentioned you're in Luxembourg right now. In the past, you'd been in Strasbourg when I talked to you. Yeah, are there any things about accessibility that you find are unique to the geographic area that you're in, either that part of Europe or Europe more generally, that maybe is different from what you see or feel is happening in other parts of the world?
So in Europe for now, we didn't really have, we had some stuff on accessibility on a kind of low level, higher level, but it was only for public websites and then administration website, things like that. So basically, if you have kind of the tax website is supposed to be accessible in every country, and everything that is around citizenship and all of that, and citizen. The thing is, if it's not, nothing happens to you, which is like you get a kind of I don't even know if people can complain to someone somewhere that your website is not accessible. So for now in Europe, it was very complicated because there was no fines, like financial fines or anything. And until 2025, where a new law is coming in Europe, Private websites, they don't care, most of them, because they're like, yeah, but what happens to me if my website is not accessible? I was like, well, you lose customers. It's like, yeah, but on a regulation level, like, do I get a fine? It's like, no, but so for now on, no fines, nothing. And in 2025, we have a new law that is coming from Europe. So it's called Directive from Europe. And then like Europe gives kind of a framework. And then every single country needs to build this framework within their own laws. A little bit like GDPR, like GDPR is highest level Europe, and then every country has something. So at the moment, all the countries are kind of starting, for some, it's a little bit late, but okay, are starting to build this within their law, and they have until 2025 to do so. And normally in 2025, it will concern not only public websites, but also private websites. There's kind of some things like if you have if you hire less than 10 people, and if you make less than 1 million euro a year, something like that. So like if you're a very, very small company, you are still not, you will not still not be required by law to be accessible. But like for those big companies that we have in Europe, they should be. So this is going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. Normally they should be fines. And I'm not a lawyer, so that's the thing, is like for now it's on the lawyer level, because it has to go through every single country, where every single country is creating a law, especially for that. And from what I've read in Luxembourg, but it might change, you can have up to 5,000 5,000 I'm bad at names, at numbers. 500,000 euro the first year. And if after 1 year it's still not accessible, it's 1 million. But I don't know if it's 1 million because it's 2 years, the 500, or it's like 1 million on top of the other fine. So again, this is stuff that is being prepared at the moment, so we need to see. But the fun part is it's a European law, so that's going to be the fun part in Luxembourg, because in Luxembourg, for instance, we don't have a lot of e-commerce website. I usually shop from German website, from Belgian website, from French one who accept to send stuff to Luxembourg. So my main question here would be, if I shop on a French website that's not accessible, who do I complain to? Luxembourg, because they deliver to Luxembourg, or France, because they're based in France. So yay, it's gonna be fun regarding laws.
Well, it'll be interesting to follow that along in the news over the next couple of years and see what happens with that. And certainly that sounds like it's going to be one important part in helping with the compliance portion. Ideally, we help organizations understand the return on investment of supporting people that maybe have never been customers because they weren't able to use the service and that type of thing. I do want to mention the work that you do in putting together information for public consumption. So I know you've done a few different things. One of those is that you have your accessibility resources site. Maybe talk about that and some of the other things that you're doing to contribute resources and ideas to the profession.
Yeah, I had a lot of discussion with a lot of people in private messages and Slack and stuff like that on, okay, but I want to start as a designer with accessibility. Where should I start? So I ended up collecting a big list of like tools, resources, checklists, trainings also are on the list. So I was like, you know what, I'm not just going to send it privately to people. So I made an article with all of those. And that's the idea. Like I'm trying to build some articles at the moment with a lot of lists. Might be working on something on accessibility for neurodivergent people, like on the autistic spectrum, ADHD, dyslexia, things like that. Because it's very specific topic as well that is not that much covered, but there's still interesting resources on there. So this is something I'm currently working on. And I've basically built a workshop that is teaching designers how to bake accessibility in the beginning of the project as a designer. I'm saying baking because I'm using a lot of examples with cooking recipe websites, so it's kind of ongoing fun with my contents. And yeah, the idea is to help designers, teach them what can you do as a designer to promote accessibility, from things in your mockups, things like how do you document certain aspects of accessibility to help your developers, to how do you make sure that you can push some features on the roadmap. So one of the things is like I went through a lot of the WCAG guideline and I checked, okay, for each, can designer actually do something about that? Because if you think about caption, you might say, okay, but look, like caption, what can I do about caption as a designer? What do you want me to do? Do you want me to write the caption or something? But then if you think you're a product designer, you're working on the tool like Zoom, at some point the tool needs to support the caption. So you need to actually design the product feature that will let people have caption, like automated or not automated ones. So even if you might think, yeah, but this is not the realm of design because caption is written text. Well, at some point, eventually, as a designer, you need to have that feature in the interface and you need to design it. So here, as a designer, what you could do is you can push in the roadmap to have captions in the tool you're currently designing. And also then you can have a few tips on how to make caption readable for people. But it's mostly things like that. So it's not just about, okay, here's contrast ratio, color contrast, stuff like that. The color is part of the thing, but it's really also like regarding features and functionalities when it comes to accessibility. There's also interesting thing we can do as designers. So yeah, that's
We'll include information about your resources list and your workshops in the show notes. Yeah, are there any other things that you're working on that you're excited about for the future, or are there some things that you're hopeful for the accessibility profession to be working on?
I've seen WCAG 2.2 is getting closer, which is nice. So for now, we have WCAG 2.1 is the official one, and there's new interesting thing in the 2.2, especially regarding again cognitive disability that that can help a lot of people. So I'm keeping an eye on what's going on 2.2.
And you're always you do a lot of presence at workshops. You're going to be doing any other accessibility talks coming up this year?
It's not signed yet, so I don't want to jinx it, but
Okay.
I might be doing my accessibility for designer workshop online at the end of the year. I need to answer some emails. I'm late, sorry. But yeah, so I might do that one. I'll also be teaching accessibility for designer in a master degree in Strasbourg. That will be remote, but that will be 2025, I think. Because like the way it works with master degrees, they have to submit the new courses and all of that. It usually takes a little bit of time. But yeah, for sure, I want to develop some things online. So I will partner with a live workshop and then I might try to think, okay, maybe I could do like some on-demand things. Like there's some ideas about having part of me pre-recording some high-level content, more like theory content, and then having after this recording some live session with the people if they want to do more exercise, stuff like that. So I have projects and plans to bring something on accessibility for designers and documenting accessibility online for the end of the year, I hope, for sure.
Well, those are all good to hear about. It's always great to hear about new university level classes being started as well, so that we can continue to build that foundation of education for accessibility. Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences with me today, and hopefully I'll be able to run into you again at another event at some point.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.